We know by withholding sex to that extreme and having a sexless marriage, it takes everything out of a man and breaks down his essence and identity of being a man. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. We're talking about the shocking truth about what a sexless marriage is and why your wife wants it, why a wife actually wants a sexless marriage. I'm speaking to the good men here today who are struggling and suffering from a sexless marriage, and also talking to the women. That if you're in this position, please know I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to make you wrong. I'm here to try to help wake you up to see the truth of how we show up in our behaviors, especially this particularly cruel behavior that we have as women. This is something I see a lot. As I was preparing for the show, it brought a lot up, and it's one that it's really sad. I might be a little vulnerable and teary throughout as I share this, which those of you who've been around a while, you're no stranger to that. This is very meaningful to me to expose these issues and problems and try to create a different path for marriages and to help women wake up so you can be the best you can be and be a wife that you feel good about yourself, and that your husband, as a good man, gets the benefit of, and helping good men to get out of the crazy making and deep sadness that particularly comes along with the issue of a sexless marriage. I want to talk about it because it is a prominent issue. Recent studies show anywhere from 20 to 40% of couples in the U.S. have a sexless marriage. I would say at least 50% of the men who reach out to me are in a sexless marriage, if not more. So the first place that I want to go is defining what a sexless marriage is. So the standard definition from sex therapists is a sexless marriage is when a couple has sex less than 10 times a year. A sexless marriage is one that's considered to have sex where a couple has sex less than 10 times a year. So I want to look at this definition on a spectrum, on a range, with the low end of the spectrum being the definition I just gave, having sex 10 times or less in a year, to 6 months, a year, 5 years without sex, 10 to 15 years without sex. On the high end spectrum of a sexless marriage, the most years that I've seen in working with someone, 45 years. 45 years. He's a devout Christian man and divorce just simply in his morals and faith and commitment, not an option. 45 years. Stopped night of the marriage or the wedding. So that's the range. Some men are in that low range where they're maybe having sex a little less than once a month or a handful of times in a year. And then there are a lot of men who have gone 6 months to a year to 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and longer with no sex in the marriage. So a sexless marriage is the ultimate act of cruelty from a wife. It's the ultimate act of cruelty because we absolutely know the most important thing to a man in his marriage is sex with his wife. It's how he expresses love. It's how he feels loved and cared for. It's how he feels respected. It's how he feels like a man. And as women, we know that. So it's the ultimate act of cruelty because it's a conscious and deliberate act to strip a man of his sense of being a man. It shows the deepest cruelty and wickedness of our woman ways in a relationship with a good man. And no matter what excuse or all the excuses given, women need to be honest with ourselves that they are just excuses. There's no validity in those excuses to not have sex and withhold sex at all, let alone to an extreme of your marriage being considered a sexless marriage. Good men need to know the excuses your wife gives to not have sex are just that. They are excuses. It is a way for your wife to create the cover-up story of why she is not interested and has given up on sex. The problem is that good men believe the cover story and fall for the excuses. So in order to begin to reclaim your sense of self and rebuild yourself from the devastating impact of a sexless marriage and your wife withholding sex at that extreme, you have to see the reality of it. You can't, let me put it this way, a good man can't heal the devastating impacts when you're caught up in the stories, the excuses, and the gaslighting that your wife is doing to you. If you're caught in that web, you can only begin to heal for yourself by seeing the reality. And that's really the whole purpose of the show today, is a big giant red pill moment for men and a big giant red pill moment for women who are brave enough and courageous enough to listen and want to look at these difficult truths and begin to create a path forward to change. Because it's only in this circumstance of a good man being married to a woman and a woman withholding sex to the extreme of the marriage being sexless, it is up to the woman to change. You hold the cards because you've created it. So this is a path to come out of it, because it's not okay. It's not okay to foster and create a sexless marriage when you are married to a man where that's the most important thing to him. It is how he feels loved. As I said in the beginning, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to wake you up, because I was there too. And that's why I share my experiences, my struggles, and share from that perspective. It's why I say we and us as women, because we have these inner workings on a spectrum. So, as I said, I was there too. By definition, I had a sexless marriage. I was having sex maybe once a month, maybe twice a month on a good month. And if I hadn't woken up and I hadn't made the choice to change, to have the red pill moment, which is seeing the truth of our nature, seeing the truth of who we are and how we operated, it would have gotten much, much worse. It would have gotten to the 6 months to a year. And my marriage would have ended in a divorce. Very fortunately, thank you, God. I believe he intervened, and very early, within 6 months of getting married, I feel God intervened on my path to help wake me up so that I could change and then help others, other women and good men to change and see what's really going on. So in it, and looking back in hindsight, I felt no remorse. I felt entitled. I felt justified. And I had a grand story of why I didn't want sex and why it had become such an issue when it absolutely wasn't an issue in the beginning of my relationship with my husband. I very much had the attitude of my body, my choice. I blamed my issues on past sexual experiences, on different hang-ups of not knowing myself in it and just needing to figure that out, and essentially making my husband believe that he had to wait until I overcame all of these issues and hang-ups. I had all the excuses, and I cut off anything that I thought would lead to sex, from just day-to-day innocent touch and physical affection to not wanting to undress or be undressed around my husband, hiding in a closet to get dressed, hiding in the bathroom, running from the shower to the closet, to sleeping on the edge of the bed and scooting away if my husband tried to get close. I had the mental calendar of, okay, I had it. How long can I go? I wasn't at the point where I could just totally stop having it, but I was on that path, and very quickly I made my husband believe that it was selfish of him to not give me the space and time that I needed. And these are the stories that we use as women to justify not wanting to have sex. And also the cover stories that we create in ourselves to not feel like a horrible person. Because we know. Because I was in it, for the women listening, you can pretend all day that you're justified and believe in your excuses, but underneath, you know what you're doing is wrong to your husband. You know it's a big problem and that it's not okay. So we have to come out from under the story. I tried to make it look like I was working on it by reading books, by going to therapy, talking about it with my husband. But again, that was a way to justify where I was and not feel like a horrible person. The really vulnerable part in all of this was having to see the truth. Is that at the beginning, this is conscious and deliberate. It's the stories we create that allow us to cloud the deliberateness of what we are doing underneath the story, underneath the facade. The truth I had to see, and the truth I hope other women can see, and the truth I want good men to know, so you can break out of the cognitive dissonance of buying into the excuses. The truth was that I wanted to take away every last drop of my husband feeling like a man so that I had full control in the relationship. That's why, as women, we want it, and why we consciously and deliberately do it and create a sexless marriage is for the control. And if we buy into our own excuses, we'll never get to that truth, and we can never change, and we'll continue to destroy our husbands and destroy our marriages. What is interwoven in a sexless marriage is the gaslighting. And withholding sex to that extreme of a marriage being sexless, we make our husbands doubt themselves. We make them doubt that it's reasonable for his wife to have regular sex with him, that maybe he's way off base in that. And we make our husbands believe that it is unreasonable for them to ask for sex, and that it is an unfair request. And in that, we make men feel that they are Neanderthals. We make them feel that they are immature. I have had some men share with me that their wives say something along the lines of, it's normal. All marriages get to this point where you don't have sex anymore. It's just part of getting older, like, and a marriage maturing. We don't have to have sex. And then good men wrapped into that gaslighting, not being able to see the truth, believe that and think there must be something wrong with them. I want to share some work from a former student of how his wife gaslighting him around sex and her not wanting to have sex, what it made him believe, because this is how other good men feel, and it's important to know you're not alone, and that this is the experience, so it normalizes it so that you can begin to heal and see the reality and make choices for yourself in your marriage. This is a very high-level man, and just your day-to-day good man, loves his wife, even in the challenges that they have had. And he shares, I view my high drive sexuality as a problem, and that I'm abnormal for having it. I view my desires for variety as also being abnormal. I constantly try to suppress my desires for my wife so that I don't cause her to label me as a childish man. In her view, not asking for sex is a sign of maturity, that the longer we go without it, the more mature I become. Yet for me, it's the more emasculated and sexually frustrated I become. That's the result of the gaslighting of what we do to make a man feel that he's unreasonable for wanting sex. Where I'd like to go next is the truth of why a sexless marriage happens. So a good man is trying to figure it out. He's thinking, we used to have good sex. We had sex frequently. She seemed to enjoy it and had fun. I felt so lucky that I met a woman that liked sex and was good in bed. And he's dumbfounded of what happened. And as a good man, and because of the emasculation, he's thinking, what did I do to cause this? The answer is nothing. You did nothing to cause it. That for you as a good man, sex is an expression of love. So when you and your wife first met and were having sex and it was fun and she seemed to enjoy it, you thought, she loves me. She loves me. And then when it got taken away and it started to dwindle, you're thinking, what's wrong? What did I do? You did nothing. You must realize, and women need to realize this too, to overcome this problem, But we must realize that as women, we only have sex to get the marriage. It's what we know we have to do because we wouldn't get you without it. So we get the marriage or even get the engagement. Some women will start to wane on sex after the engagement. Some women stop the night of the wedding, as I shared earlier. Some can last a couple of years because they want children, and then they have children, and the excuses start building. I'm exhausted from the kids. Work is stressful. I'm overwhelmed. There's too many issues and problems with the family right now. I'm just not in that space. Then all of a sudden, surprise issues from her past in sex begin to arise that you never knew about. Perimenopause, menopause, grief from losing a parent, getting sick, and the excuses build. It's just a matter of how long she wants to keep or doesn't want to keep the facade of having sex. Depends on when she's ready to give up or she's gotten what she wants. After a marriage, it's likely kids or a certain amount of security. And good men don't realize that the excuses really are just excuses. He's thinking she still wants to have sex. It's just all these things are in the way right now because it's not in a good man to withhold sex or manipulate his wife to gain power. It's just not how good men are wired, so they can't see it and see through the excuses and what's really happening. There's a story of a man, I think this was about 10 years ago, who was very frustrated of his wife not wanting to have sex. He made a spreadsheet. Some of you are probably familiar with this, but he made a spreadsheet of all the dates he tried to initiate sex and the corresponding excuses that he got, ranging from, I'm watching a show right now, and it's like a rerun of Friends. I feel gross. I feel gross. I need a shower. I ate too much. You're drunk. I drank too much. I want to finish the movie. I'm exhausted from my day. And these were the excuses she would give over and over again. Ultimately, he initiated 27 times and got only 3 yeses. The red pill moment for good men. If this is happening and you're starting to get the excuses, part of seeing the reality is to know that your sex life is doomed and you are headed for a sexless marriage. It's just a matter of where you will fall on the spectrum of it being 10 times or less in a year, or the more extreme of going years without sex. And it will start with months. Maybe it'll go down to a few times a year, and then it will stop completely. You want to know that's the trajectory. If these are the excuses you're starting to get, that's the trajectory that you are on. You need to know it is reasonable for your wife to have regular sex with you and enjoy regular sex. Of course, you can't make her or change what she's doing, but part of coming out of the gaslighting is to know what's reasonable, so you know you're not crazy, and that what you expect and thought marriage would be is what it should be. That's sex is part of a healthy marriage. Regular sex is part of a healthy marriage. And not having regular sex is a sign of a very unhealthy marriage. The red pill moment for women is that you must realize how cruel it is. You must realize how cruel it is to withhold sex, let alone to the extreme of a sexless marriage. Withholding is just the beginning stages of heading down the path to a sexless marriage. Withholding is what happens more in the beginning stages of the marriage until you decide you're not having sex anymore and you give up. It's like a switch goes off. I don't want sex anymore. And we start saying things like, I'd be fine if I never had sex again. I'm just really not interested in it. I've changed and matured, and I don't need sex. The truth is, we have no interest in the wifely duty of having sex, and basically tell our husbands, I don't want sex anymore, so you shouldn't either. It's immature. And gaslight our husbands to the point of they can actually believe that. As a woman, and what I had to see for myself is that not only is it a denial of your husband and what he needs to feel loved and respected and like a man in the relationship. So not only is it a denial of your husband, it is a denial of yourself as a woman. God created us with all the right parts to enjoy sex and have it be a pleasurable experience. It is one of the ways we get to know ourselves as women, and sharing that with our husbands. I have learned that it's because we feel so bad about ourselves. Part of the reason that we shut the doors to sex is we feel so bad about ourselves on the inside for how we show up in life, namely in our marriages, that we don't believe we deserve pleasure. And we have our victim story created around our unhappiness and how miserable we are. And we don't want anything busting that story. Because if we actually enjoy sex, it might bust the story. We're so miserable. So we do actually enjoy sex. It's important to know that is when we do actually enjoy sex and have all the all the capacity and all the right parts to enjoy sex, but you've convinced yourself you don't and push it away because you are terrified you might actually enjoy it. And then there goes all the excuses and there goes all the victim story. And you have to re-engage, and we're scared of that. Where I would like to go next is we're going to get into 10 reasons why your wife wants a sexless marriage. 10 reasons why your wife wants a sexless marriage. I'm going to define it again and talk a little bit about how it impacts a good man, how a sexless marriage impacts a good man and makes him feel. And then we'll get into the 10 reasons. So a sexless marriage defined by sex therapists is when a couple has sex 10 times or less in a year. That is considered a sexless marriage. I find it's on a spectrum where that's the low end of the spectrum, where then a sexless marriage becomes 6 months without sex, a year without sex, 5 years without sex, 10 to 15 years without sex. On the high end of the spectrum, the longest I have heard is 45 years, the entirety of the marriage. How it makes a man feel is completely demoralized and robbed of his sense of being a man. He loses his confidence. It's the breakdown of his essence of being a man. His self-identity as a man crumbles, and he is not able to succeed in life. Which underneath all of our excuses we give as women in a marriage, why we aren't interested in sex or can't have sex, this is the end goal. The end goal is to make you feel crushed and destroyed so you can't be successful. The deep, dark secret of a married woman is she doesn't want her husband to be successful. She wants him to fail so that it solidifies her victim story of why the problems in the marriage are all his fault, why he's a pathetic excuse of a man, and justify her poor behavior or justify her wanting to leave. Is because we know by withholding sex to that extreme and having a sexless marriage, it takes everything out of a man and breaks down his essence and identity of being a man. And in that, a man feels broken. He feels impotent in a sense of being incapable. He feels pathetic, embarrassed, betrayed, let down, rejected, demoralized, beaten down, and like a failure, which then can rob him of his ability to do life and work and show up as a dad and be his best to varying degrees. Some men are able to navigate it more easily, whereas other men get completely lost in this experience of the cruelty of his wife not giving him any sex, or very, very, very little, and having a sexless marriage. So getting into the 10 reasons why your wife wants a sexless marriage. Number 1, she never wanted to have sex in the first place. It was a ruse in the beginning of the relationship. She only had sex to get what she wanted, the security of marriage, checking the box of getting married, or wanting kids and knowing she needed you in the marriage to be able to do that. So after having kids, she stops having sex because she never wanted sex in the first place. Number 2 of why your wife wants a sexless marriage. Number 2, sex is not important to her. That is, women, we are so selfish and so self-centered and feel no obligation to fulfill our wifely duties in having sex and enjoying it, and strings you along through her excuses and stories that you buy into, that she does still want it and will tease you just enough and give you just enough to make you believe she still wants it, until she gives up on sex and decides how much to let you have it or not at all, because it's not important to her. Number 3 of why your wife wants a sexless marriage. Number 3, she feels so bad about herself. She doesn't want anything that gives her pleasure. You have to recognize that all the ways that your wife treats you in the woman ways I talk about, being controlling, being bitchy, being a bully, or controlling ways, being a nag, constantly complaining, blaming you, making you the problem, all those behaviors make us feel really bad on the inside because we see and know what we're doing. And it doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. So she doesn't want to have sex because it might actually make her feel good. And she needs all the bad feelings inside of her to keep her victim story intact, because we don't recognize in our victim stories and putting the blame outside of us, we don't recognize we're causing the awful feelings we have about ourselves internally. We believe it's you. So if we actually allowed ourselves to have pleasure and feel good, it would actually crumble our victim story. And we don't want anything that makes us feel good so we can maintain the victim story. Number 4, she wants to prove how unhappy she is and how terrible the marriage is. She buys into her own stories. Those stories being, I'm so tired and exhausted. I'm giving to everyone. No one's giving to me. I have nothing left inside of me. I'm drained. There's no way that I can have sex. And we believe in our stories because we want to prove how unhappy we are and how terrible the marriage is. Number 5 of why your wife wants a sexless marriage. The feminist movement. In the feminist movement, it's my body, my choice. If I don't want to have sex, you have to respect that because I'm entitled to that and I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. No one can tell me. It's up to me. I have agency over my own body. Number 6, there's nothing in my vows or the Bible that requires me to have sex once I'm married. And she lives in that story. Who made this up? Tell me where I signed or tell me where in my vows that I agreed to continue having sex. So again, we want to reinforce all of our stories to not have to have sex. Number 7, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. You're not telling me what to do. If I don't want to have sex, I'm not having sex. And if it's your idea, I definitely don't want to do it. We're addicted to doing what we want when we want with no regard for another, certainly our husbands, and how that might impact them. Number 8 of why your wife wants a sexless marriage. We want the problem in the marriage. We want the problem of a sexless marriage because that allows us to, again, reinforce our victim story of why things are so awful. And if we solved the problem, which is one of the biggest problems in a marriage, is sex, if we solved the problem, we would have nothing to complain about, nothing to point the finger at of why we're so unhappy. So we want the problems in the marriage. So we want the problem of sex. In this case, the problem being he wants it and I don't, and I should be entitled to not have to have it. And we want the problem to continue and get worse and worse and worse to be able to point the finger out and blame. Number 9 of why your wife wants a sexless marriage. We feel like we've paid our dues. We feel like we've paid our dues. I don't want to do it anymore. I've put in my time. I've put in the effort, and I shouldn't have to if I don't want to. So deal with it. And this is just what happens in a marriage. And number 10, the most important to understand for both of us as women and for good men. Number 10, why your wife wants a sexless marriage. It is part of the ultimate emasculation and control. We know how important sex is to a man, and withholding it and cutting it off in a marriage for a marriage to be sexless weakens a man and puts us in an ultimate control in the marriage. And it's really important we realize we're doing that as women so that we can break out of it and change. And it's important for a good man to know that so you understand what's really happening and break out of the gaslighting of the excuses and stories you've been made to believe. And those are the 10 reasons why your wife wants a sexless marriage. I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution. So for women, you are the solution because you are the problem. If you are in a sexless marriage and have cut sex off from your husband, there's nothing he can do to re-engage you. You have to recognize, as I did, that it's cruel, it's deliberate, it's conscious, and it's not okay. And do the work on yourself to open back up to sex and recognize that it is part of a healthy marriage. It's part of a healthy relationship with yourself as a woman. And no matter your excuses, they're not valid, so that you can do the work to open up and enjoy sex, and you'll find you enjoy it. You have to learn to enjoy it for yourself. I have heard from some men that their wives say, just go outside the marriage. I don't care. Go get it outside the marriage. Most good men won't. even though it's reasonable that they do. Most good men won't, and that's even more emasculating and almost worse, because you're admitting to him you don't want sex and you don't want it with him. Because he believes you still love him. And that's saying, I don't love you. I don't care that this hurts you. Go find it somewhere else. That's almost worse. So that's not a good solution. So if you can't do the work for yourself to open up and re-engage with sex, it's better that you say, I'm so sorry, you deserve a lot more than what I'm willing and capable of giving. It's time to go our separate ways, and you leave. But hopefully, if you're listening at this point and brave enough to hear this and look at yourself in a sexless marriage, that it's as simple as doing the work to feel good about yourself on the inside, recognizing that sex is part of a healthy marriage, and knowing that you enjoy it. You just have to learn to enjoy it for yourself and just step back in. It's actually very, very simple. I am in the midst of writing a book for women to re-engage with sex who are like me and wanted to re-engage. I knew it was a problem and it couldn't persist. And I was very, very fortunate. It happened very early. But it's not too late, especially if your husband is still with you and enduring. So give yourself and him the gift of opening back up to it. For the men listening, if your wife has cut off sex and you are in a sexless marriage, there is no solution to get her to re-engage in sex with you. There is no solution to get her to re-engage with sex. There is a solution for you to heal on the effects and impact of the sexless marriage. I'll talk about that in a moment, but it's really important you know there's no solution to get her to re-engage unless she makes the choice to work on herself to re-engage. And there's nothing you can say or do or lead well enough or work out enough or take care of yourself enough or make enough money for her to re-engage with sex. So don't listen to what I call the RBA, the really bad advice out there to men, whether it's coming from the manosphere or other red pill content or your church. Those perspectives are making you the problem. It's just well disguised, and they can rope you in to believe that there's something you can do, or it's some failure on your part as a man that she stopped having sex with you. It's a dead end. Cannot tell you how many men I have talked to that have gotten in ultra top physical shape, are good looking men, are successful, and they're just totally dumbfounded why it didn't work to re-engage their wives with sex. They tried having more game. They tried all the things, and none of it works. Or your church telling you you're just not being a good leader, again, is making you the problem, because society does not recognize and acknowledge the cruelty of a woman taking away sex in a marriage and makes it the man's fault. And then as a society, we accept the excuses given as valid reasons of why a wife doesn't want to have sex. It's premeditated, it's purposeful. We can know it's premeditated because how many women stop engaging and having sex on the wedding night? From my perspective, it is more than reasonable that in a sexless marriage, especially one where it's completely off the table and it's been a year or years, many, many, many years, I believe it would be perfectly reasonable, more than reasonable, for a man to step out of his marriage. But society doesn't accept this, and a good man would feel so guilty, even though it's reasonable, and often will not do that, or does, and then feels an extraordinary amount of guilt and feels worse than he did before. So there's no solution in resolving the issue around a sexless marriage with your wife. So what you have to do is to make sure that you understand the reality of what's happening, so you're not drawn into the gaslighting that it's somehow your fault. And you have to put your energy, instead of putting your energy into trying to fix it with your wife, you put the energy into yourself to make yourself happy, to rebuild yourself. Even though it's incredibly difficult and challenging and a big adversity for a man in a marriage, it's the same as what I teach everyone, woman or man, the path that I do my best to lead and live in my own life, that when life or God throws us adversities, it's up to us how we respond, and we're in control of how we feel and experience ourselves, even in the face of extreme challenges. So you're in control to heal the brokenness, the depression, the crushing impacts of a sexless marriage. That's within your control to heal within yourself. When you don't take the steps you need to heal that internal experience for yourself, your wife is winning, and she has the power and control. I want to read another brief part of this man's work who came through my course, and what he realized in taking responsibility to heal his inner experience of his wife not having sex and making him feel wrong and bad for wanting sex. And this was a Christian man who it's not an option for him to leave based on his faith. And here is his realization in this: whether you are a follower and believer of God or not, you can put this in language for yourself to know your path of what you can do to heal internally, in spite of if your wife re-engages with sex or not. But what he came to realize that I want to share with you, which is so well said, because he felt he was in a catch-22 with his wife and her not having sex and making him feel wrong for it. He realized God never puts us into a catch-22. There's always a path to victory and rightness, even if there's pain involved that is lasting. His sanctification of the believer, of me, takes many forms, yet pain is often the most productive because it gets my attention. Sex is something God created, but it is no substitute for his happiness. My manhood is determined by God, not how my wife gives her body to me in love or not. This is not a fallacy or bifurcation here. The third option is to take my pain to God while I exercise my asking for things muscle, instead of choosing not to ask or initiate at all. If I do ask and she is cold, God can and will work on that as he wills. I realize that I'm scared of being vulnerable, so I must stand and be confident. Her controlling techniques have led me to doubt the goodness of my God-given, biblically described and supported sex drive, so that I don't exercise it. If she shames me for it, I can see that as her problem to take up with God, and not a situation where I coddle her by not asking. So I share that because I think that's a really good example of a man healing and coming to a healthy perspective, being in a marriage where his wife has taken sex off the table so that other men can be inspired to not feel controlled in the devastating impacts of a sexless marriage, but that it's within your control, should you choose to heal, and then be able to make choices based on your own values and what's right for you in your marriage and in the place of a sexless marriage. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.